relatable.
I want to welcome you to What's Hot Between the Covers. We have a really interesting guest. She's written a book called I'm Davening as Fast as I Can. And if you know what davening is, that's praying. That's what Jewish men do. You have to have 10 men to do it, but she's doing it. And I didn't know that women davened. And her name is Darryl Forman.
Well, she's actually, Davening as Fast as I Can is really what I wanted to name the book, but I was afraid to because of the movie,
so
the
it's not
Oscar.
the name of the...
No, the Oscar-winning movie that won it. And I thought, oh, we'll get arrested.
So I've got I'm Davening as Fast as I Can, but it is called...
It's called The Unleavened Truth.
The Unleavened Truth, which is a matzah.
Which should give you some indication that we're not too far from davening.
Yeah, all right, so we're right there. I want to talk to you, Darryl. First of all, I want to talk about how this book came about.
I started writing because it made me feel good. Nothing else made me feel good. So I would get a couple of, I had about 6 months off from a job, and I said, I'm going to just start writing. So, for example, one of my friends said to me, you know, I was going to therapy, and my therapist said, you should bring your brother to therapy. And I thought, well, there's a great idea. And of course, I started writing right away about taking my brother to therapy, what that would be like. And I realized that it kind of helped get rid of some of the things that I didn't like so much about our relationship. And so that's pretty much what I'm doing. And people say, well, write about what you know. Well, I know me. I write about me, you know. On the other hand, I have a private side, which I don't want to reveal to everyone all the time. And so I've created a new genre to get away with it, which is called Notobiography, and that's N-O-T-A-U-B-I. After that one, I forget what comes next. And it allows me, I mean, if...
O-G-R-A-P-H-Y, go ahead.
And the things, if they didn't happen to me, they could have happened to you, they could have happened to you, they happened to someone. I'm not that creative to come up with whole new ideas. These things happen to people, and it's just the way I present them. And I have this funny side. You grow up Jewish, you have this funny side, or you don't grow up.
No, you know, they say there's a book written about how to be a comedian, and it says where to get material, and then it has underneath it where to get material, and that says if you're Jewish or black, skip this chapter. And it's true. If you're Jewish, I was talking to a young man about my doing comedy, and he said, well, why do you do comedy? I said, I'm Jewish, I'm funny. He said, well, I'm Jewish and I'm not funny. I said, but you could be. You could be. So go ahead. So you're writing all these stories, and where are you putting them? Just on the computer?
I'm putting them on the computer. Occasionally I show them to people. And
do you edit them, or do you just...
Yeah. I mean, I kind of write them, and then I go back and edit, and then I look at it and I go, this isn't grabbing me. What am I going to do to punch this up, you know? And a lot of the times I say things outside because when you read this book, you'll see that there's a lot of wordplay and a lot of bad puns as well. And so I kind of punch it up like that. And I would like to talk for a minute about I'm Davening as Fast as I Can, because it's really about, you grow up, I grew up in Newton, Mass. I thought the whole world was Jewish. We didn't.
That's Newton, Massachusetts. Jewish and rich.
We didn't have turf wars. We had shul wars.
Say it again.
We didn't have turf wars. We had shul wars. What shul do you go to? The people over there aren't any good. You know, go to this one.
It's very Jewish. I was in. My husband went to Harvard, and I lived in Cambridge, and I taught in the little town right across the way, which is Brookline, which is actually wealthier than Newton at that time. Very, very wealthy. Highest median income in the United States was in Brookline and Newton. Mm-hmm. And Newton was just very desirable to live in if you were Jewish. If you weren't Jewish, it was you were sort of...
Newton had very good schools, and that's why people wanted to live there.
And you were saying your mother worked... So
my mother worked so that we could live in Newton, so we could do all the things that... Well, do half the things that our neighbors did anyway.
Yeah, that nice Jewish girls do.
That's right. Well, I didn't do any of those things because I was a nice Jewish girl. I still am, kind of. I did marry a Jewish man. We also divorced, but...
With a Jewish divorce?
With a Jewish divorce,
yeah,
right.
Get, what is that called, a get?
Yes, it's called a get.
Yeah, I've had 2 of those.
You get it.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
So anyway, I'm Davening as Fast as I Can is a story about coming to San Francisco where not everyone is Jewish, and working in the investment world where so many people are. But I was at Charles Schwab, which was a discount broker, so it wasn't so, there weren't so many. I was in a research group with people, and I became their knowledge person. Anything Jewish they would ask me about and stuff. And there were people who would come up to me and they would say, oh, it was Hanukkah, I thought about you. And my first reaction is, why don't you buy me a present?
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
It's just, and so it's kind of like making my way through there. And in all fairness, I did not align myself with the Jewish community when I moved to the city. So it had to be very different. I was a hippie.
Yeah, she lived in a commune?
I lived on a hippie farm in upstate New York, 15 miles south of the Canadian border. And we had no plumbing, we had no electricity. We did have a fire one night. Actually, it was the first night of Hanukkah. And
How
the house burned
appropriate.
to the ground. I mean, it was a festival of lights. We just took it a little too far. We were hippies, remember?
Yeah. Did you write about that in this?
Actually, I wrote a shorter story about that J Weekly published. But I didn't write about that, but it was kind of funny. We were all Jewish up there. It was just kind of what you call a bad night.
And very, very progressive and very liberal. Jews are very often embrace liberalism and communism and socialism. All those liberal, that's why kibbutzes took off, because they had this community living thing. Jews are, you can't make a generalization about any race. I find it wrong. But by and large, Jewish people, a lot of Jewish people are Unitarians. Yeah.
Well, I think the thing about Jewish, I mean, it's a cultural thing. It's not necessarily a religious thing. And it's kind of like when you're in a room and little kids find each other, it's kind of, or gaydar, it's a Judar. I mean, you just know right away these people. I started a new job at Wells Fargo. Within, the first day, at the end of the day, there were like 6 of us there talking about it, So it does happen. It's a little bit of alienation that you can use. But I, too, thought everybody was funny because I grew up with all Jewish people and I thought that they were all funny.
Everybody. You sit around the kitchen table and you tell jokes. That's what you do.
Or you make fun of things. I mean, sarcasm is like a gene for it.
That's true.
But I found myself that it was so different out here, and so I just started writing more and showing it to a few more people. And then this man I dated, who was a Jewish man from the East Coast, and he said to me, "Are you wealthy?" And I'm thinking, what does he want? He said, "You must be, because you're not publishing your stuff, and it's so good." And I thought, well, there's a real statement. And so I tried to publish. I sent to a couple of places, and they weren't interested. And then I had this serendipitous event happen, and I went to a party, and the people who had it are the people who are behind Untreed Reads, who was my publisher. And I sent them a story, and I sent them a couple of stories, Excuse me. I have 30,000 words, so 5,000 have to be good. So I sent them my 3 best stories, and they loved them, and they got back to me, and then we just started doing this, and it's all been very email, very electronic. I've only met these people once. I hope to see them on Monday night when I have my launch party. So it was very different from all the stuff that I had read about publishing and all that glamour kind of stuff that happened. And it's also hard to see your words cut.
Yeah, did they do it? Did they edit for you?
They did a lot of editing. I have this habit of going from tense to tense, And so they did some editing.
So they do edit, and do they charge for the editing, or do they just do it?
I think the charge comes in the time put in. I mean, if this book is very successful, and after it pays for itself, I get a certain percent, but I'm not exactly sure what those, what the amount is.
Well, I want people to understand about e-publishing, because they're going to want to do it.
E-publishing is the new rage. In fact, the New York Times just announced that it will be doing their bestseller list on e-book only. They're especially effective in the nonfiction category, I think. So there are many ways. You can, when you do an electronic book, you can buy it from Amazon, you can buy it from Untreed Reads, and there are several ways. There's a Kindle format, there's an iPad format, there's a PDF for people like me who can just go and then just print it, And there are a couple of other ways of doing it. It seems to be it's a great way to get the information out. And then the big question, everybody says, are you going to sign it? Are you going to sign it? And I'm like, how do I sign an electronic book? And the good tech people, they say, well, I'm just going to take the copy of the cover and have you sign it, and then I'm going to work it back in. But that's way beyond my ability. I'm pretty much a Luddite. So that's
getting it accepted, what do they do with you once they say, yes, we'll put you on our website?
We'll do the book.
We'll do the book.
Then what happens is you send them in all the things, and they write back. I was told, I sent in 18 stories, they said, we like them all, and I'm like, wow. And so I knew that I would have to do a lot of work on some, and then I knew that others, that my top list, that I would have to do less because I've edited every time I go into it, or somebody says something, or...
You do that. That I understand. I'm constantly editing. When I reread the books that I've already published, I think, oh my God, how did I let this out?
Right, I know. You almost get embarrassed. It's like,
you
how
think,
could I have written that?
How could I have done that?
Or when I get this, the thing about writing that I love is that you're sitting there in front of the computer, and all of a sudden this idea comes to you, and you don't know where it came from. And I'm my own best I'm my own best critic, my worst critic and my best critic, and I sit there and I start laughing, and it's like, thank you for giving me that. I have no idea where it came from. And then there's another little part of me that says, you should have thought of this a long time ago, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, so now they've got a book, they send it to, there are several e-publishers, are there not?
Almost everyone e-publishes now.
Okay, so then you send it there, and it's an e-publishing thing. You send it to an editor. If they like it, if the person in charge, they have to like it. In other words, they read it. Somebody
They read,
this.
right. I think that there are a lot of opportunities out there in the e-world. I know that Untreed Reads is looking for good manuscripts to print, to work with, and my feeling is, not being seeped in the world of publishing, that, I mean, it's so much less of a risk for the publisher to put out an electronic book. If Random House, is there still a Random House?
Yes.
If Random House,
get their books.
If Random House puts this out, they will pay Untreed Reads a certain amount, and then it'll go into and become much more traditional and probably make much more money. Hello, Random House.
So is that what you do? You send it to other publishers, or do you
No,
just hope they notice?
I think we hope they notice.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's how it works. I think it's a great opportunity for people who want to get stuff out, and I know that publishers are looking for new material.
So tell us more about this book. This is, I've got the one that I read was Enter Not Dating.
Okay. Well, I'm convinced that unless you're a spider or under 40, that the web is not the place to date. It's just
Under
not
40
available.
is, oh no, I know so
Under
many
40.
people.
I mean, it's for spiders, the web.
And
you know?
I have heard just the opposite. I have heard that it's the only way people meet each other now. There is a group called San Francisco Singles. Are you aware of that?
No.
Well, once you get on their website, I mean, they do parties all the time.
I'm not interested anymore.
But what I'm saying to you is that internet is the way people first meet and rather than going to bars. That is what I hear. But of course, I'm 77, and most of the people that would be
I
interested
think they're
in me
doing
can't
both.
work a computer.
I mean, I think at a certain point in your life, if you really want to have a relationship, then you have to work on it.
Exactly.
And I don't know whether you meet
it
them
also
in a
means
bar.
getting up a lot.
It's a big choice. And speaking of relationships, you asked me what this book is about before. This book is really about relationships. It's about how people interact. I have taken a humorous view because I'm a lightweight. I'm really not very deep. It's really just all about making a joke about things.
Okay.
So it's easier for me to do it that way.